Welcome to the Public Info Center for North Olden Avenue Safety Improvement Project. Today we're going to run through the recommended proposal. For the this project. Okay, just wanted to go over some of the project team members that are here today. We have representatives from Mercer County, the project sponsor and facility owner, Jason Middleberg. He's the engineer, assistant engineer. We have Bassett Musfar. He's the county engineer. Caitlin, who's not here. Matt Zukowski, planning office, and Matt Lawson, planning director. He's here. I'm part of the consultant team from McCormick Taylor, and my name is Scott Deek. I'm the project manager. I also have Brian Kelly here. He's one of our project engineers. We have Ember Hubbs. She's the highway engineer working on the project. And then we have Rudy Batra. She's our outreach specialist working on the job. The project is funding and oversight is handled by NJDOT. And I don't believe we have any representatives from today, but local New Jersey DOT local aid is participating, and then their environmental resources folks are involved. And then DBRPC, the regional MPO, John Kasha is manager of the transportation services. He's also involved in as a project sponsor. So the agenda for today is we're going to go over a little bit of the project background. We're going to cover the purpose and need. We're going to talk about the project, the proposed improvements, some of the expected impacts. We're going to look at plan displays and then a project schedule, and then we'll have questions and answers in the room here. If you're online, please submit your questions in the chat, and then we'll respond to them at another time. So, but we do want to get a record of any questions. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We'll take questions and from the audience here. At the end, we'll break up. We'll talk about them at the display boards and some of the plans we have. We also like to go over teams. If you're not familiar with that, there's a couple of features. There's a mute, unmute. Please stay muted if you're online. You can raise and lower your hand later with the questions, and then we may be able to take care of them. Please keep your camera off just so it doesn't pop up in the screen. And then please be sure if you do have a question, put it in the chat box. And as I said, we will make sure that that's recorded and take care of it. And you can type your messages in. So moving into the project background. This project's been in the works for several years. Local concept development was completed in June of 2022. And the preliminary engineering phase, which is what we're in now, was begun in the June of 2023. And since that time, we've been working on developing the plans to a higher level of engineering degree from the basic concepts that were originally presented. And the ultimate goal of preliminary engineering is to develop the plans, identify the impacts, and ultimately come up with an approved environmental document, which will allow us to move into the final design phase. That's approved at that point. Can't get funding for final design until the environmental documents are approved. After final design, which will probably take a year to 2 years, we'll ultimately move into construction, and then construction will probably take 2 years. But we'll fine tune that schedule as we go on. Project location, obviously, you're all familiar with that. It runs from North Olden. It's on North Olden Avenue. It runs from New York Avenue to Pennington Avenue, south to north generally. It's about 1.75 miles in length. It's located in Ewing and the city of Trenton. it's North Olden Avenue is classified as an urban liner arterial, which means it's not a local street. It's a major carrier for county level highways. It's not a state interstate. It's 2 lanes in each direction with a speed limit that varies between 35 and 25 depending on the location. There are 20 intersections through this segment, and 8 of them are signalized at this point. The majority of the project area carries 2 lanes in each direction with a 2-way center turn lane. And this large segment is nearly all commercial. The portion from Princeton Avenue to New York Avenue is 1 lane per direction with on-street parking, and it's more residential in nature. Overall, the project, the North Olden Avenue carries just about 10,000 vehicles per day on average. This is a schematic that we prepared of what the northern section, or from the Ewing from Pennington to Princeton Avenue section looks like. As I said, it's the 2 lanes in each direction with a 2-way center turn lane. Sidewalk and commercial establishments adjacent directly. The existing sidewalk contains many obstructions, including utility poles, signs, and other roadside features, driveways, and that are unusable, that limit the usability of the width of the sidewalk. Most of the sidewalk is not ADA compliant. It's thin sidewalks. There's not nearly as many ADA ramps. They're mainly substandard. As you get down from Princeton down to New York Avenue, obviously it changes. As I said, you're more into a residential area. The existing roadway features 2 lanes in each direction, and it varies in width. And it has some on-street parking and very close buildings. Like Ewing, the existing sidewalk path contains obstructions that limit the usable width of the sidewalk. The sidewalk is not ADA compliant. And while the area does contain some allowable temporary on-street parking, vehicles often park in prohibited areas, even on the sidewalk, and add to the congestion in the area. The illegal on-street parking is a safety concern. So what is the real project purpose and need here? Ideally, it's all safety based. Over the course of 2018 to 2022, there were 723 reported accidents along this corridor. Prior to that, there was an additional 250 to 300 vehicular accidents, crashes, which basically brings it over 7 years to almost 1,000 crashes through this corridor. So safety is a big concern. Of those crashes, there were 18 bicycle and pedestrian crashes, which is a major part of our purpose to make it safer for all users of the road. It's not just vehicles, it's bicyclists and pedestrians, and it's a multimodal setup. Prior to 2018, from 3 years prior to that, there were another 4 accidents or crashes, which brings it over 9 years or 23 reported pedestrian and bicycle crashes. That's too many for this type of facility. So the project purpose and need here is to improve the safety and traffic operations and the mobility for all the users of the North Olden corridor, including motorists, pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit users. The goals here are to improve the traffic safety, congestion, and intersection improvements, and highway access for all users and properties. We also want to improve the safety and mobility so the pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users can use North Olden more effectively. We want to address stormwater management and flooding regulations throughout North Olden Avenue. We have identified areas that flood out We want to fix them at the best we can. It's not an overall major rehab, but it's going to try and, we want to clear the road of standing water and flooding during heavy storm events. And we want to actively implement improvements that facilitate the complete streets policy of Mercer County, Ewing, and the city of Trenton. And that's, again, that all goes back into having a facility that's usable for all pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, and motorists. And obviously, last but not least, we want to, we want to avoid or minimize socioeconomic, environmental, and property impacts, and minimize disruption and maintain access during construction. So that's a big part of our plan development. So at this point, I'd like to let Brian Kelly, the project engineer, take over and walk you through the proposed improvements. He'll get into some details of the specific areas, and then at the end we'll break for more specific questions at the boards. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Hello, everyone. How are we? Just like to reiterate that this PIC is specifically held to gauge the opinion of the public and gather questions from you all. So all these proposed improvements that we have that make up this project have been evaluated over a number of years, as Scott had mentioned. And we are trying to, limit the impacts to the public as much as possible. We're still in the design phase, obviously, so this is valuable time for us to hear all of your thoughts and take those into consideration. And as we mentioned, if you hold your comments till the end of the presentation, that'd be appreciated. So this is the schematic of the roadway improvements for the corridor, as you can see over here. We'll have time to delve deeper into that after the presentation. But the primary roadway improvements, as you've seen, are the addition of 4 roundabouts in place of signalized intersections. Those are at Parkside Ave, Prospect Ave, Arctic Parkway, and Capitol Plaza. Roundabouts are a proven safety measure and lead to a 78% reduction in fatal injury crashes as compared to signalized intersections. So all going back to the safety aspect of this. Any remaining traffic signals are going to be upgraded to be ADA compliant, feature push buttons, and all upgraded facilities at those traffic signals, which should also aid in the timing of the lights and aid in alleviating congestion. There are a good number of property access modifications, driveway and parking lot modifications, mostly in those areas of the proposed roundabouts that require a different footprint, obviously, than the roadway currently has. Additionally, we are proposing a raised median, which will be 4 feet wide, and a buffered bike lane, a 2-foot buffer, and 5-foot bike lanes throughout on either direction, and 8-foot ADA compliant sidewalks. Throughout the entire project area, deteriorated curbs, driveways will be placed in kind or modified to improve safety and general functionality. So this is the proposed typical section through Ewing. So you've got in lieu of that turning lane in the center, we're now proposing 4-foot raised median that eliminates the left turn lane or the left turn movements in both directions. 11-foot travel lanes, again, 2 in each direction are proposed. On the sides of those, 2-foot buffers, safety buffers, and then 5-foot bike lanes, which will be striped and painted green, which is a standard treatment for bike lanes. As far as the sidewalk goes, we're proposing an 8-foot sidewalk, which will essentially extend to the existing right-of-way line, the existing property lines. And what that will do is, achieve this ADA compatibility and pedestrian movement through these areas. As far as the roadway improvements in Trenton, the roadway itself won't be significantly modified, but the primary improvement is restriping of the roadway to include left turn lanes at the necessary intersections. Again, reconstruction of deteriorated sidewalk and driveways, and ensuring that the corridor through here is ADA compatible as well. Scott mentioned on-street parking. We anticipate that to be greatly reduced. Right now, there's a lot of variability in the time limit of parking, block to block. There's different treatments, and that kind of leads to a free-for-all. A lot of cars kind of parking where they choose. There isn't necessarily parking stalls or anything like that. So again, this is a little bit of more of an enforcement issue as far as police goes, but we are trying to reduce that on-street parking. These are just two kind of zoomed in typical areas of a roundabout and a signalized intersection. Those purple dashed lines represent temporary easements that would be required for the construction of sidewalk, the reconstruction of parking lots and so on. The vast majority of the easements and right-of-way involvement for this project are temporary and, like I said, mostly sidewalk, driveway, and things of that like, which would be short duration easements due to the ease of constructability for some of those smaller improvements. This is just one of the straightaway tangent sections of Ewing. And again, that's just kind of reiterates, we will need temporary construction easements for the majority of every property really. And that's just for kind of replacing in kind and improving those sidewalks and providing, clean new driveway aprons and so on. You can see here, those two kind of blue marked out areas that are a little larger. Those are proposed BMPs for stormwater management. So those are the basins or rain gardens. So you can imagine those would be larger footprints, obviously, and would require more of like a permanent easement or an actual property purchase. And again, that's just a zoomed in version of the New York Ave intersection. Trenton doesn't have as much involvement right-of-way wise because there's already a lot of sidewalk already out there, but we will be providing proposed crosswalks and rapid flashing beacons for those crosswalks. Just a couple examples of the signal and intersection improvements. One kind of really obvious one is the crosswalks, improved crosswalks, which feature that continental, that ladder striping that you see there. Upgraded striping for better visibility, pavement markers, the RPMs that have reflective properties to them. That's a good look at what that bike lane would look like on the outside of either direction of the road, which would be painted green and would have a 2-foot buffer between that and the live travel lanes. And then improved lighting throughout. So that would be mostly at the roundabouts and signalized intersections. Lighting is proven to increase the safety and drivability of a corridor. Couple more specifics. This is just going back to the traffic signals. 12-inch larger traffic signals with standard NJDOT facilities, countdown pedestrian signals, ADA accessible push buttons for those crosswalks, which would both be audible and tactile. So the hearing and visually impaired would be able to use those. And that's a good look at one of those rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RRFBs, which would be at the roundabouts and at unsignalized intersections, which you would use said pedestrian push button. And that's another great proven safety feature. So to go with all of these roadway improvements, there's a lot of drainage mitigation that needs to happen due to the reevaluation really of the existing stormwater issues. So there's a lot of inlets like this that you can see that are definitely much out of date. Those would all be replaced throughout the entire project area with bicycle safe grates and NJDEP compliant curb heads. We would be replacing all old and deteriorated drainage pipes with new reinforced concrete pipes. We'd be increasing the amount and efficiency of the inlets and pipes to reduce flooding. So it's a full-on drainage, stormwater management design throughout. So larger pipes, many additional inlets to collect that stormwater. And it's all about, again, safety and keeping water off the roadway. We'll also analyze drainage to and from Shabacum Creek to make sure we're not impacting any of the hydraulics and hydrology of the Shabacum Creek. So a couple of those stormwater management improvements. Two great examples are wet ponds and bioretention systems. Those are similar but slightly different. One kind of holds water more on a permanent basis, and one is only meant for short term. This can be called rain gardens. So these would control water quality, quantity. They'd ensure that the total suspended solids are in acceptable levels. We'd also like to propose porous pavement and permeable sidewalks where available. So we're looking into that, looking into the specifics of where that's feasible. Most likely it would be in areas not traveled by vehicles due to the strength of that material, but think on sidewalks. There's great technology coming out where really the water flows straight through the sidewalk, and you don't need as many actual drainage facilities to combat the water. So for environmental, we touched on that. We're as part of the PE phase, trying to get our environmental document approved. We don't really have many environmental impacts, honestly. Wetlands, parks, endangered species, none of that has any anticipated impacts. Cultural resources, the history of the area, and different facilities is currently under investigation. Make sure any of those sensitive cultural areas are not disturbed. So for our permits that are anticipated, there's an NJDEP stormwater management or major development permit. There's a flood hazard area permit, and there is a Mercer County soil erosion sediment control certification. There is the Shabacum Creek Park, which is between Pennington and Parkside, and we anticipate no impacts to that park. So taking all these improvements into account, obviously we have some impacts, both temporary and permanent, right-of-way impacts, modifications, lot to existing driveways and parking lots are anticipated throughout the project limits. Some of the more substantial ones are listed there, as you can probably see on these displays. There's a number of access modifications proposed, which can include consolidation of driveways on some of these lots that have more access points than really should be allowed. Again, it's a safety concern. There's a lot of parking stalls throughout on private property that that these parking stalls do encroach over the existing right-of-way, or the backing of vehicles out of these parking stalls require the vehicle to either cross over sidewalk or into the shoulder, which is definitely a safety concern, and we're trying to look into all that. For right-of-way, we're currently anticipating 90 temporary construction easements. So that's many, virtually all of the properties through Ewing. And as I mentioned, it's mostly for those sidewalk replacing kind or driveways or the widening of sidewalk. All should be temporary, all should be short duration for some of those. We are anticipating 35 partial right-of-way acquisitions and permanent easements, and those would be for the more substantial parking lot kind of remodifications and some of these stormwater management facilities that I mentioned earlier. Mercer County will discuss and negotiate all of this right-of-way and access involvement with individual property owners in the next phase, in the final design phase. For utility impacts, so the roadside of North Olden Ave, as you probably know, contains a huge amount of utility poles. They're carrying electric, they're carrying fiber optic and telephone wires throughout the area. This is a common site here, and that has a lot of negatives, mostly for pedestrians, for pedestrian use. So we are proposing that 8-foot sidewalk which is wider than the existing. And in doing so, we're trying to reduce the number of utility poles that need to get relocated. We're still anticipating 82 pole relocations throughout. Many of those are in the areas of the roundabouts where the roadway is actually getting widened and can't have a utility pole in the roadway, obviously. In areas like this, we're doing our best to not have to relocate every single utility pole out there. And with a wider sidewalk and the resetting of a fire hydrant or a pole, we can get away with having that allowable width for ADA compatibility without having to, like I said, relocate an excessive amount, even though 82 is certainly significant. Underground utility relocations are anticipated, although will be avoided if at all possible. There's sanitary sewer, there is gas lines, and there's water lines that run throughout North Olden Ave. There was just a new water line put in and an old water line abandoned in place as well. So there's a lot of underground conflicts. We're not doing a huge amount of underground work, but for any utility relocations, there's a lot of homework you have to do in making sure you don't have conflicts in that way. And as I kind of touched on, there's numerous manholes, utility valves, fire hydrants that will need to be reset or relocated. So for the actual construction of this project, it will be a staged construction, meaning that 2 lanes of traffic will be present at all times through Ewing and 1 lane in each direction through Trenton. So what will happen is that lanes will be shifted one way and the work zone will be in the opposite side of the road, and then kind of the reverse will happen. So it will be something around 4 or 5 separate stages. Nighttime or off-peak construction may be required to accelerate the construction, and the detour along Spruce Street may be utilized as well. We're anticipating drums for a lot of the work zone protection, or for more permanent and more kind of serious actual work that's very close to travel lanes, there would be concrete construction barrier. So stage 1 would involve kind of pushing out the lanes to the edges, which they kind of already are, and flattening any medians that are currently grass medians or little divider islands. Flattening those to allow for us to use temporary pavement and to then move lanes onto them in the next stage. So stage 2 would be something like moving all of the traffic to the more northern side of the road and doing the work on the southern side, all the roadside, the sidewalk, the driveways. Stage 3 would be kind of the reverse of that. And then stage 4 would finally be moving the traffic back out opposite sides of the road and constructing that raised 4-foot median. And then stage 5 would be kind of a minor stage that would just involve final pavement work, striping, and so on. So for the project schedule right now, we're in preliminary engineering, as we mentioned, and we're anticipating finishing that in fall of this year. A lot of moving parts and a lot of funding and so on needs to happen before we can start final design. We're anticipating that in summer next year. That'll be about a 1.5 to 2 year phase. And we're hoping to start construction, if all things go well, in fall of 2028. And we're looking at about a 2 to 3 year construction. We included this as product contact for the county engineer, Jason, who's been helping us along the way on this whole thing and has been greatly helpful. There's a link on the project website here, which includes additional information. That's it from me. Thank you very much. And I suppose now we can open it to Q&A, and those online can raise hands